Hello and welcome to Held in Our Hearts Baby Loss Podcast. We are an Edinburgh-based charity providing baby loss counselling and support for bereaved families. We are committed to ensuring that no family has to face their journey of loss alone, and we wanted to create this podcast to reach out and share stories, encouraging greater connection and understanding. Join us on our journey as we speak to a wide variety of guest speakers who have been personally affected by baby loss or who have been moved by it. Hello, my name is Angie and welcome to episode 15 of our podcast. Today I had the pleasure of speaking to Heather Taylor and Mhairi Hayes. Heather works for Held in Our Hearts as the principal peer supporter and is a longer ago bereaved mum to her daughter Eilidh. Before joining the charity, Heather had a career in providing mortgage advice and has recently completed a degree in psychology. Mhairi came to us for support at the beginning of 2020 after her precious daughter Niamh sadly died. We discussed Baby Loss Awareness Week, and this year's theme is Stepping Stones, and we remembered together the steps taken after families leave the hospital with their precious baby. Mhairi and Heather shared their own journeys and the different steps along the way, and they reflected on how much has changed, but also how much more still needs to be done, what support they accessed, how they've marked milestones, and friend and family support. I hope that you found our conversations comforting, listening to Mhairi and Heather sharing about their journeys as bereaved parents. As always, if you or anyone you know has been affected by bereavement, please reach out to us by emailing info@heldinourhearts.org.uk or calling 0131 622 6263. And now, let me introduce the lovely Heather Taylor and Mhairi Hayes. Hello and welcome, Heather and Mhairi. Absolutely delighted to have you here, especially during this special week. This week is Baby Loss Awareness Week, which runs every year from the 9th to the 15th of October. And this is the 20th year. It is a week for everyone in the baby loss community and beyond to come together to remember much loved and missed babies. The theme this year is Stepping Stones. The focus is on families finding themselves on a new path they never expected to be on. The week is about the steps along that journey and how they are different for everyone. Some steps can feel harder, but there's always a hand to support anyone when they feel unsteady. Today, we are here to chat to you both about your own journeys and some of the steps along the way after the loss of precious Niamh and little Eilidh. Thank you so much for joining us today. If I can come to you first, Heather, if you could share a little bit about your daughter Eilidh.
Yes, thanks, Angie. So my daughter Eilidh was stillborn 26 years ago at 32 weeks. She would have had Down syndrome, but we didn't expect that she was going to die, and we just thought she was going to have problems after she was born. But unfortunately, I just went to a normal appointment and found out that she had no heartbeat, and I had to give birth to her then. So that's my story.
Thank you so much for sharing that with her, and it's wonderful that you're here today just to share about her 26 years on, but also in your role with the charity. So thank you for sharing. If I can come to you, Mhairi, if you could share a little bit about Niamh, please.
Yeah. So Niamh was my first baby. She was born in January 2020 at 27 weeks gestation. She died a few days earlier because I developed HELP syndrome, which is a severe form of preeclampsia. We'd taken quite a long time to get pregnant, so she was our IVF baby. We were so lucky to fall pregnant first time with her. And so she was really tiny. She was 1 pound 5 ounce. But otherwise, she was just perfect. And we spent 4 days with her in hospital.
Thank you so much for sharing about her. I can't begin to imagine how much loved and longed for she would have been, but then through COVID as well, to have all those challenges through that. So, Mhairi, we're here today to talk about the journeys that bereaved families face. And, the first for you in terms of that stepping stone Can I ask, how long after your loss did you make that first step to reach out and get in touch with Held in Our Hearts?
Yeah, so we contacted Held in Our Hearts quite quickly after losing Niamh, I think within the first couple of weeks, because we just felt it was such a huge thing to deal with, and we didn't know how to even start dealing with it on our own. I think we got through Niamh's funeral, which was a few weeks after she died, and then got in touch, and we spoke to Heather, I think around after 8 weeks after she was born. I met her in Craig's Farm just before lockdown hit, so we could actually meet in person.
And we know from speaking to families how hard that first step can be, reaching out and making that call or writing that email. How did you find that with that first initial approach?
I'm pretty sure I did it sort of like 2 o'clock in the morning one night or something, because I just wasn't sleeping, and I was just so desperate to just find a way through it and to make, life seem like it might get better and get some kind of help just to get through those early days, because it was really difficult. So I found the email address and just fired off an email and hoped for the best.
I think it's so important for those listening, really to take hope from that, encourage, the importance of reaching out, but also acknowledging how difficult that can be as well, to really be able to have the strength to reach out and say that I need help. So yeah, hopefully everyone listening can really take courage from that. And Heather, for you, I'm aware that, it's 26 years ago now. So, the landscape for bereavement care would have looked very different. Can you share a bit for you when you first made that reach out for support?
Well, back when Eilidh died, there wasn't one-to-one support. It was only group support. So I left the hospital with a whole load of leaflets for what was then Sam's Lothians, before we became Held in Our Hearts. And my mum said to me, you should go along to this support group. I think it will help. And I wasn't really very keen to go, because in my head it was going to be a lot of people sitting around in a circle, which it was, to be fair. But I thought it was going to be a bit like Alcoholics Anonymous, and you would have to you would be forced to stand up and say, I'm Heather and my baby died. And actually, when I got there, my mum was pushing me in the door, physically pushing me in the door. But actually, it was lovely. It wasn't like that at all. There was no pressure at all to speak. In fact, I didn't speak at the first month at all. I just sat and listened to everyone else and got lots of hugs at the end. And I thought, this is definitely what I need.
I love the fact that it's your mum that was the one to encourage you. And I think it's that understanding and knowing, that's exactly what we offer at the charity, is that sense to be able to connect and be able to meet with others that understands. And the same would stand today, isn't it, for anyone that's coming along for a group. There is no pressure to share. There's no pressure to speak. I think that's important for people listening, that they do want to engage and feel that they want to come to a group. It works the same way now. But we do also have one-to-one support. So it's meeting families where they're at and what works well for them. So for Heather, for you, reflecting back today, is there anything that you might have chosen to do differently? Or would you have made any different decisions at the time, that knowing what you know now?
I don't think I would have done anything differently, but I definitely would have liked to be able to speak to someone one-to-one like they can now. The group was great, and it was quite a large group at the time. So you didn't always get a chance to speak if you really wanted to, because it was such a big group. But I think being able to speak to someone just one-to-one and sit down and feel like you weren't taking over the group would have been fantastic. And that's exactly why I do what I do, because I know that how needed that is for someone just to speak to someone who understands and who's been there.
Absolutely. I think it is that fundamental that we see a lot the difference for some people that want to have individual support, and some people that want group, and some people that want both. But it's the importance of choice, isn't it? Do you see that a lot with families, that it looks different for each family that we support?
Yes, every family is different, and that's why we don't have a sort of one size fits all when it comes to support. Some families will have one-to-one support and go to the group, some just the group, some just one-to-one. It's whatever people need and what they feel best with.
Thank you. So thinking now with the years that have passed for you, Heather, and for you yourself, Mhairi, you're a couple of years on. If you were to go back, if you could go back, would there be anything that you would tell yourself then? I come to you first, Mhairi.
I think when we first lost Niamh, there was a lot of encouragement from everyone to kind of get back on her feet and get back to some kind of normal and to go out and do things and see people. And I think probably all that I would tell myself now is that actually it's okay just to stop and take time to grieve. For me, with lockdown coming in so quickly after we lost Niamh, it was actually the best thing because I could just stop, and I did things like planting flowers for her and making a scrapbook for her, and we did hot air balloon crafts because we were going to have hot air balloons in the nursery, and just spend time doing things that were quite nurturing because that's all I really wanted to do after losing Niamh. So I think what I would tell myself is just it's okay to stop and take time, look after yourself, put yourself first, and hide away for a little bit.
What sound advice. I think it is sometimes the challenge of family and friends who haven't experienced it and what they think is helpful. And actually, it's really, really important to just stop and to just be. And, sometimes it is scary, but, just being able to allow yourself to be. And I suppose for you, like you say, that lockdown gave you that space and time. And some of those things you mentioned sounded absolutely beautiful, planting flowers and scrapbooks to give you that time to really reflect and to grieve your daughter. So hopefully those listening can maybe take some ideas and advice from that, and to be kind, to stop and just be kind and to just be. Thank you. Heather, what would you tell yourself if you could go back?
Obviously, when I lost Eilidh, mobile phones weren't invented yet, but something that I always wish, and I always tell every family that I speak to, if I speak to them before they've gone in to have their baby, is to take lots and lots of pictures and videos. And I do have some pictures of Eilidh, but they're really medical photographs. They're not the lovely pictures that I see people with nowadays. And to take pictures of you with your baby as well. I would love to have a picture of me with Eilidh, which I don't have. And definitely I agree with everything that Mhairi said there, that there's no rush to get over it or get through it. Just take your time and grieve and be kind to yourself. And I would also just say, it will be okay, because at the time you think your world has ended and you can't even think of a future at all. You just think this is the end of the world. And now, I'm doing a job that I love, and I have 4 more amazing children, and they're not there to replace Eilidh. And I obviously I still have moments when I'm upset about Eilidh, but on the whole, things are good. So I would tell myself that.
If only we could turn the clock back, be able to say all of those things. I think there's some really important things in what you said, but I was kind of chuckling saying the idea now, no mobiles. So they're just so prevalent, aren't they? But yeah, there's some really, really important things there, and something that I know that we do share that a lot with families around taking pictures and videos and things that you might not look at for a long time, but that you have, and you've got the option to be able to look at them when you want to. But also, it will be okay. I think that's a real fundamental, and that's really what we do, isn't it? As survivors and bereaved parents supporting others, saying that it will be okay, and you're standing there as a survivor to say that you will find a way to move forward, not to move on, but to move forward and be able to cope and be able to see things and be happy again and have joy in your life. But it's providing that light in the darkness, isn't it? So now if we're thinking about something that I know that when we're speaking to families is what to do to mark milestones, to mark first birthday, to mark time, you going back to school, longer milestones such as maybe 21sts, things like that. Heather, could you share a little bit about what you've done over the years to mark Eilidh's birthday or to mark big milestone anniversaries over the years?
Yes, every year we have a birthday cake. And we do something as a family. So I live quite near a farm, and we quite often go to the farm. The children will have a play, and we'll come back and have birthday cake at night. And we've just always done that. And my children have all grown up with that being our routine, I suppose. For bigger anniversaries, for Eilidh's 21st, I had a ceilidh, and I used that to mark her 21st because I wanted to mark it, but also I used it to raise money for Held in Our Hearts. So I charged tickets and donated the money to Held in Our Hearts. So it was a really nice way to mark it, but also to give to Held in Our Hearts at the same time.
There's some amazing suggestions in that. I'm smiling as you're talking, thinking that Eilidh is as much a part of your family and remembering, and she's, part of the calendar year in the same way that you would have all your other children's birthdays, and some wonderful suggestions there for listeners about things that you can do that are really straightforward and easy, but are also quite poignant, that it's part of the family and an opportunity to talk and reflect about Eilidh. And the ceilidh, I remember the ceilidh because that's when we first met, when you came in and we chatted about it. I think it was our chance to say thank you to you for fundraising, and was a really lovely way to mark such a special milestone, but equally a lovely way to give back as well. So thank you. So Mhairi, coming to you now, could you chat to us a little bit about some of the support that you had through Held in Our Hearts? Did you access any of our support groups?
Because we lost Niamh so close to lockdown, there wasn't a lot going on. Everything was kind of changing and things were going online. So from Held in Our Hearts, I obviously spoke to Heather every week, and a few months down the line we started counselling as well with Elaine. I didn't access any support groups. I'm not kind of a support group person, I'm not sure. Although when I became pregnant again, I was in the Pregnancy After Loss WhatsApp group, and I felt that was really helpful just to see that other people were feeling the same kind of anxiety around their follow-up pregnancies as well.
Thank you. Of course, yeah, through COVID, it was a different experience. But I think that's really what you've said is reflecting that on what Heather said at the beginning as well, is that opportunity to access the services that are appropriate and fitting for each family, and what works for you might not work for someone else, and vice versa. So that's great to hear that you had support through counselling as well. And you mentioned the pregnancy WhatsApp group. For those that are listening, could you maybe share a little bit about how that works and what support and comfort that gave you through your pregnancy?
So I think we were kind of the first people to do it. So it was a kind of learning as we went. So we had a regular time slot where we could all come together and chat one evening, but equally we could just message at any time just to see how we were feeling, or that, we had a scan coming up or any worries we had, and there was people there to talk it through with, and just to say, I feel the same.
And I think it's that thing, it's why it was one of the ways at the time to connect, because like you said, we couldn't have that opportunity for in-person support the same. It feels strange reflecting back now just how surreal the whole experience was, that you couldn't sit in a room with people. We were all at home, and for families like yourself who were pregnant, it always is going to be an incredibly anxious and challenging time being pregnant again after loss, but you also had the additional worry around COVID as well. So I think it's great to hear that was a good source of comfort and support. And I know Heather was really involved and active in setting that up and reaching out. And as a staff as well, we very much almost collectively support everyone pregnant again and kind of carry you through that journey. So thinking now about friends and family and the support that they've offered to both of you, how have you found friends and family in offering support? How did you find that, Mhairi, with the support that you received through your wider networks?
I think I've been really quite lucky in the support I've received. So when Niamh died, the first thing that we did was phone my dad and my stepmom, and they were able to come in straight into hospital to be with us. They spent the whole first night there sitting up chatting to me while I was in labour, and they were there for Niamh's birth the next day. So they were a huge support in the very early days. They helped us think about where we wanted to bury Niamh and how our funeral would be and things like that. We also had my in-laws, our brothers, my best friends and my mum all came to visit Niamh and meet her in the hospital as well. So that was really special memories that we were able to make together. In the weeks that followed, I had a friend who went and found the Baby Loss Guide by Zoe Clark-Coates, and she read that, and it has a whole chapter in there about how to support friends who've gone through baby loss. So she was just brilliant help. She was messaging me every single day, and she always said, "There's no need to reply. I just wanted you to know I'm thinking of you, and if you need anything, I'm here." And she's continued to be a huge source of support. I have another friend who lives a lot closer to Niamh than I do. So when it comes to Christmas and her birthday and I want to put flowers down, I can get them delivered to her and she'll go and take them along. And she's always really thoughtful. So she's been fantastic. Our close friends and families are great. And we've also done things like fundraisers for her birthday and after she died. And I got messages from people who I hadn't spoke to in years and years that were really lovely and meant a lot. Because we'd shared our pregnancy online, so we had to share that she died as well. So yeah, there's a lot of lovely people around us.
That's just incredible to hear the level of support that you had, from the very start. And I think we often hear that from families, that challenge that no one's met their little one and there's not that shared memory, but you had that opportunity for your family to come in and to meet with her, and you all can talk about her and being able to have those memories together. So that's wonderful. You sound like you have the most amazing family and support network around you, which is great. And to hear that your friends went off, and I think that sometimes we see that with friends and family, they don't know what to say, they don't have anything to relate to, and it's such a unique experience that they can find that really, really difficult to know how to support. But there's some amazing things in there that you said with some of your friends, who texting and saying there's no need to reply, there's no pressure, but just knowing that you're being supported and that they're there for you. And then your friend who will put flowers on by Niamh's graveside. Yeah, you have a lovely bunch around you, which is great to hear. And fundraising as well. It's I'm glad that you mentioned that. That is a really powerful thing for a lot of people, that, and particularly even just putting out that Just Giving page, and people that might feel they don't know what to say or they don't know how to support, but they can give a £10 donation and they can give a wee message of support, and it's giving people, connected to you, a way to support. And obviously for charities like ourselves, it's, amazing to have that level of support too. So for you, Heather, how was it for you? Because I'm aware that it being for longer ago, that we're making moves all the time, aren't we? That people are more comfortable to talk about baby loss, more comfortable to talk about death, but it's still is a challenge. But for you, when Eilidh died, did you find that friends and family were of a good support at the time?
It was a very different time. At the time, I did get a lot of support from, sort of my immediate family and friends, particularly my mum and dad, and also a friend of my mum and dad's who lost her little boy to cot death when I was 3 years old. She was a huge support to me because, she had been through something similar, and understood what I was going through. So she was a massive support. And even a lot of the time she didn't even say anything. She just sort of held my hand and cried with me. And I think that's what you need sometimes. Wider friends and family, although I think people are really, they're trying to be helpful and they're trying to be well-meaning. I did get some comments like, well, if she was going to be disabled, it was maybe for the best. Things like that. Or, it wasn't meant to be, and you need to move on, move forward, or you need to pull yourself together, things like that. And I know people don't mean it or didn't mean it in a bad way. They don't know what to say because it wasn't something really that was spoken about back then. And that was another thing, that quite a few older people I knew would come to me and say, oh, I had a stillbirth however many years ago, and I had never known, and I'd known this person my whole life, because it just wasn't spoken about. So yeah, things have definitely improved a lot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it is. It's still difficult, isn't it? And it's that challenge that probably still is there with friends and family, that difficulty of trying to make the situation better, or that it was meant to be, or these things. But I think what you said about the lady that just would sit with you and hold your hand, sometimes there's that concern or thought that, what do I say? What's the right thing to say? What's the wrong thing to say? And sometimes it's just, like you say, it's just sitting and listening and being with someone and holding their hand while they cry. And sometimes there are no words. There are no words to be said. It's just giving that gift of listening and kindness, isn't it? So you've touched on it a little bit, but it would be good to hear your views, in particular, Heather, about how much you feel things have changed in terms of the support. We're sitting here today as a baby loss charity, so we know that there's been huge strides in terms of the level of support that's offered, but maybe more widely, how you feel that things have changed in terms of the support and the openness around the conversation of baby loss.
I think there's been a huge change for the better, definitely, but also things are still improving all the time, and there's always improvements that we can make. From in the hospital, I think the midwives, when I lost Eilidh, they were all lovely. They all did as much as they could, but they didn't know really themselves how to deal with it either. Whereas now, they've all gone through training. When we're doing NHS training a couple of times a month just now, with midwives, consultants, GPs, everything, and just helping them with how to speak to bereaved families, kind of things that you should say, and kind of things that you shouldn't say. So from the hospital, and practical things like Eilidh was put in a really big Moses basket for a full-size baby, and she was just tiny. Now, there obviously there's a little knitted baskets that are lovely, and it's so nice to be able to have that, rather than putting a baby in a huge big Moses basket that she was clearly far too small for. And then leaving hospital, as I say, I left with leaflets. I know that midwives are talking to families about support that's available to them, rather than just putting a whole load of leaflets in a bag. So yeah, I think things are definitely improving all the time.
That's great to hear, and it's great to hear about the different opportunities as well for staff to engage. And it's coming back to that conversation, isn't it? The compassionate conversation, and for staff in the same way with friends and family to have the confidence to be able to support people who've experienced baby loss. I think that's absolutely key, and more understanding within the training that we offer as well, isn't it? And the leaflets, I think it's great to hear that there's more opportunity and more chance for staff to talk, and I think there seems to be a real movement to knowing that it's really important to signpost in a different way. So leaflets have a purpose. Of course they do. We're 2022. Most things are digital, but paper leaflets still have a place. But it's also about the conversations and explaining, the importance of support and making that connection and signposting much earlier.
Can I also just add that, about half of our referrals now come directly from the NHS. So people aren't having to make that 2:00 email, to say, and I'm needing some help. They're being referred directly to us, so we're getting in touch with them, reaching into them rather than them having to reach out, which I think is great.
Yeah, and I think it is. It's taking the onus off the family, isn't it? No one should be expected to go home with a leaflet and say, get in touch if you need help. Of course they need help. No one is prepared to deal with the loss of a baby. It's a crisis for a family. So it's changing the conversation exactly as you say, Heather, and it's reaching in from the start rather than asking families to reach out, because we know how difficult that can be. And you've touched on that yourself, Mhairi. So it's really wanting that support and that early intervention from the outset. And Mhairi, what do you think more needs to be done to support parents?
I think for me, a major thing would be improvements in leave when you lose a baby. I was really aware how lucky I was, if that's the right word, that Niamh died at 27 weeks. If she died just a few weeks earlier, I wouldn't have had any leave to take at all. But because I was 27 weeks pregnant, it meant I got to take my maternity leave, which I desperately needed. And my husband, unfortunately, in the first few weeks after she died, he had to have quite a lot of conversations with his employers about needing time off. And, he was getting a week-to-week sick line. Eventually, they agreed a few months off for him, but there was no formal leave in place for that now, and nobody knew how to deal with it. So I think that would be the major thing, would be leave. And then I guess, as we've touched on, just removing that stigma around talking about your baby and continuing to talk about your baby. I think I'm probably reaching a point now where it feels as though people expect that you're over it, or you should move on, and that you don't need to talk about Niamh anymore. So kind of, just removing that stigma.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing those things. I think there's some really important things in that, and particularly around the leave for dads, and that understanding and more compassion from an employer, that maybe there isn't a policy or a specific leave that is associated with that, but really understanding that a sick line isn't what he doesn't need. A sick line, he just needs some time and space, in the same way that you were able to take leave. And I know we do a lot of work with corporates increasingly, trying to do what we do with NHS healthcare professionals, but equally with employers, to help them to understand what that looks like, both for parents, for mums who have had loss, but equally for their partners coming back to work as well, and needing that time and space, and for us to be able to share that experience and what that looks like, and how to create a more compassionate workplace. And part of that will be looking at policies and leave, but it's a much wider conversation and challenge, isn't it? It's not just within the areas that we work, but across the UK. There's movement, but I think we all know that there needs to be a lot more movement to change what that looks like, and almost that these things would automatically kick in when a situation like that happens. So, yeah. And the stigma as well that you shared too, around that appreciation and understanding that it isn't, we know that it's not a case of, you don't get to a point where in other types of bereavement you get to that acceptance and you move on, but with baby loss it doesn't work that way. And it's more to be done for people to appreciate and understand that you still want to talk about your daughter. Heather, you're 26 years on and your daughter is still very much and always will be part of your life. Is that something that you see with some families, that maybe a sense of frustration, from friends and family, expecting them, they're a year or 2 or 3 years on, why haven't they moved on?
Yeah, that is something that we hear all the time, that especially after sort of the first year, or especially after they've had another baby, that people will just think, well, you've got your baby now, so everything's fine. And no, you don't have your baby, you have another baby. And no, it doesn't change. It doesn't end, because when you lose a baby, it's not like losing a grandparent, which I know is devastating, but you reach a stage where you can look back at all the happy memories you had, and you can smile and remember them. I do that when I think of my gran. I smile at all the silly things she did. But when it's a baby, it's that entire lifetime that you're grieving. So you're grieving the newborn, you're grieving the toddler, going to nursery, going to school, and that entire life. So it's not something that just goes away and after a year or two everything's fine. It's not like that at all. It does get easier. It definitely does get easier, but it's always there.
Thank you. I think that is that grieving the loss of a future, isn't it? Each stage. And I think that's hopefully for people listening today that are not bereaved to really hear those words and just be there in support, for forever. It's that lifetime loss that is there and will always be, and helping, like your friends, checking in and texting and remembering your daughter. I think these are key things to listen to and to remember. So thank you so much to you both for sharing so openly about your own journeys as bereaved parents and parents to Niamh and to Eilidh. Really grateful to you for your thoughts and your advice as well. So you'll be glad to know that I've just got one final question, which we ask all our guests, is to share something that you're thankful for today. So if I can come to you first, Heather.
So I've been on a few of these podcasts now, and I've still not run out of things that I'm thankful for. You'll be glad to hear. So today I am very thankful to parents like Mhairi, who are willing to give up their time and come on here and talk about their baby and talk about their loss. It's not an easy thing to do. It's often quite an emotional thing to do. And I am just so glad that Mhairi came on here today to have a chat. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Heather. I don't get to answer this question, but I would like to echo what you've said as well. I'm incredibly grateful to you for coming on today and sharing. And it's most definitely not an easy thing to do, but we're really grateful to you for coming today. So if you'd like to share something that you're thankful for as well.
I'm actually really thankful just to be given the opportunity to talk about Niamh and to share her story, whether that's with you guys and Held in Our Hearts or friends and family who still talk about her and want to hear about her. I think that's the thing I'm most thankful for.
Thank you so much. I think that's a really lovely way to end it as well. And I think it's that importance, as parents, you want to talk about your sons, you want to talk about your daughters and continue. That's what keeps them alive, keeping them, sharing the stories and the memories. It's so, so important. So thank you so much for sharing today and for coming along and today during Baby Loss Awareness Week. Really grateful to you both. Thank you so much again to Heather and Mhairi. I hope that you found that useful and the areas we explored were meaningful and helpful to you, and that to know that you're not alone and the importance of reaching out for support. Also knowing that for our support, we meet you where you are, and there is never any pressure to join a group or to share. We will support you where you're at. And a key message from Heather to remember that it will be okay. You will survive and find a way to move forward. But also for family and friends to know that sometimes there are no words, just being there with a listening ear and a shoulder to cry on. As always, please reach out or follow us on heldinourhearts.org.uk or email us on info@heldinourhearts.org.uk if you need support. Remember that this is Baby Loss Awareness Week, so please support by getting involved, coming to our drop-in event on Thursday the 13th of October, or to our special Wave of Light walk around Arthur's Seat on the 15th of October. Thank you for listening, and we hope that you will join us again next time.